that a thing called? Mike can't cause to know the people tell on the press conference and he wasn't in the air. Yeah, you see anything with that? At the after the president? No, I don't feel.
Our secretary will be reading 3 statements, after which we'll be taking questions. Let us be civil, identify our media house, and ask questions in a respectful manner, sorry. So, GS, over to you.
Morning, everyone. The People's Progressive Party has taken note of the deafening silence of APNU leader and presidential candidate David Granger on a number of issues for which Guyanese are eagerly awaiting answers. Granger needs to justify his reluctance to appear before the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry to explain his role in the military during that period when he served as a senior officer. Is it that he's afraid of the many skeletons in his closet that would be exposed and therefore destroy his presidential ambitions? Or is it a case of cold dismissal of the public demands for answers regarding his and the Army's role in the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney? And why is Granger silent on the large-scale cache of arms and ammunition that went missing and eventually found its way in the hands of criminal elements? Talk about transparency, accountability, and bringing an end to narco-trafficking and money laundering by the political opposition are nothing but hot air when seen against the background of the PNC's stubborn refusal to lend support to the anti-money laundering bill. That bill presented to Parliament was killed by the APNU-AFC coalition because of narrow partisan interests and drug barons aligned to the 2 opposition parties. Instead of harping ad nauseum on the former president's pension and other entitlements, which were supported in Parliament by his prime ministerial candidate, Granger needs to explain his decision and that of his political concubines about their intention to foist on taxpayers 3 vice presidents should his entity happen to win power by some miraculous means. If he is so much concerned about the impact on the public purse on the former president's pension and other benefits, wouldn't the appointment of 3 additional vice presidents not put additional pressure on the country's finances, which he, Mr. Granger, seemingly claims to care about? And why pick on former President Bar Jagdeo as the sole beneficiary of such entitlements, when others before him received similar benefits? Is there a racist twist to the pension in which it is acceptable for some to get the same statutory benefits, but not for former President Bar Jagdeo to so receive? The truth is that Granger is being conveniently selective on issues and deliberately withholding important information from his constituents, which could serve to incriminate him and his party in the process, and in the process do further damage to his electoral ambitions. This apparent amnesia on the part of Granger and his acolytes are at best mind-boggling and raises some serious questions regarding the suitability of Granger and his political entity to be entrusted with the task of administering the business of government. The PPP is convinced that Guyanese electorate will see beyond the opposition's veil of secrecy and silence and return the PPP seat to government with an overwhelming majority come May the 11th. The next statement reads as follows. The People's Progressive Party views with great concern the continued attack on Guyana's developmental partners from the combined opposition, the most recent of which was directed at the Inter-American Development Bank regarding the approval of 2 operations. We take note that the combined opposition, having not been content in scaring away big and credible investors such as Site Global and others which have cost hundreds of jobs and countless economic benefits for the people of our country, have now embarked on a new campaign of vile threats and nasty innuendos led by the coalition acting in cahoots with the WPA and the NGO in disguise, the GHRA, towards attacking Guyana's premier long-standing international development partners. This vulgar assault on reputable institutions like the IDB further confirmed what the PPP has always been saying, that the opposition coalition is on a mission of vengeance mixed with anti-development practices in its quest to grab power and stymie development in our country. It is beyond our party's comprehension, and no doubt that of every Guyanese, on how the opposition alliance can be so ignorant of the policies of multilateral institutions. The PPP wishes to remind the hostile opposition of the bank's procedures in the developmental cycle of each project before it reaches approval from the Board of Executive Directors. This process usually takes 12 months. In this particular case. These loans were long before President Ramaphosa decided to call election from which it was constitutionally due. In the project preparation stage before it receives approval at the board, this is also in keeping with established bank practices. The PPP wishes to point out further that upon approval, these projects and all related information are immediately placed on the bank's website for public information and dissemination, which ensure full transparency and accountability. It is obscene of the opposition to accuse an institution like the IDB of lack of transparency and accountability when it is known to adhere to international best practices as it relates to rules and regulations governing transparency and accountability. Instead of calling on the IDB to repeat what the world knows about their leadership in providing developmental assistance to countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, the opposition should answer the question of the Guyanese people as to why they were accused by their own members of rigging internal party elections within the PNC, and in the case of the AFC, anointed candidates without even their executive members being consulted. The opposition should also let the Guyanese know and the IDB know why they have been on a crusade to block several developmental projects, including the Marriott Hotel, the expansion of the CGIA, and Myla Falls hydropower, among others. Our party wishes to commend the IDB and all our developmental partners for continuing to put the interests of Guyanese people first and foremost in fulfilling their developmental mandate. We are pleased that the government of Guyana were able to secure the 2 operations which will significantly help in reforming the security sector and implement internationally best practices in environmental management, all of which are in keeping with the government of Guyana's developmental goals for the people of Guyana. We also call on the opposition to stop embarrassing Guyanese in the eyes of the international community, to halt the lazy charges and wild assertions of involvement in illicit deals between the government of Guyana and our developmental partners. By their actions, they are demonstrating to the people of Guyana their lack of vision and readiness to govern our country, and we urge the opposition to learn more about the basic aspects of how development banks are governed and how to contribute effectively towards the prosperity of our country. The final statement reads as follows. It is with great alarm that the People's Progressive Party has learned of the Guyana Elections Commission's decision to collaborate with the self-anointed, quote-unquote, Guyana National Youth Council to implement a program aimed at bringing out more youths to the polls. The PPP is concerned about this development for two reasons. First, the organization claiming to represent Guyana's youths has no authority to do so. As far as the PPP is concerned, this youth grouping is a creature of external interference through the LEAD project and is nothing more than a group of partisan persons who are attempting to hijack the name Guyana National Youth Council. Secondly, as far as the PPP is aware, the decision to enter into a formal arrangement with this partisan body, or anyone for that matter, must be a GECOM commissioner's decision. This matter was never discussed at the commission level, and those who are making such a claim are clearly overstepping their authority. The PPP rejects this outright interference and the imposition on the electorate of Guyana. The PPP urges the chairman of and the CEO of GECOM to bring this matter to the highest decision-making body of GECOM, that is, at the level of the commissioners, for review and a final determination. GECOM should collaborate only with legitimate and recognized bodies whose representation can be seen as bipartisan and in the interests of all Guyanese. The locus standi of the so-called Guyana National Youth Council is highly questionable. Further, the PPP calls on GECOM to intensify its voters' education program, especially in the rural areas and the hinterland regions. Previous experiences have taught us that a large percentage of rejected ballots on polling day were occasioned as a result of poor voters' education by GECOM, resulting in the lack of knowledge by voters, especially with regard to changes made in between elections. Cognizant of this, the PPP will continue its relentless advocacy for strong, well-trained, and neutral polling day staff to be recruited. Hence, the PPP maintains its call for public vetting of polling day staff. In the same manner, the names of the registration officers were published in the daily newspapers. There should be no secrecy in this process, since the integrity of the electoral process lies in the hands of those individuals and all Guyanese, including political parties, who must be able to contribute to the screening of these persons. Again, the PPP wishes to strongly reinforce its position when it comes to the use of information clerks. Chaos and frustration wreaked havoc on 28 November 2011 due to the poor work of these GECOM officers. Many persons were frustrated to the point that they decided not to cast their votes and return home frustrated. GECOM must ensure that if information clerks will be employed this time around, they are carefully selected and properly trained to function in a neutral manner in the execution of their duties at polling places. Guyanese must demand that all legitimate and meaningful concerns raised by the PPP or any other political or civil group are addressed so that the regional and general elections will be free and fair and free from fear. Thank you.
Thanks. There you have the three statements. Now we'll take questions. Who will be the first?
So you spoke about the youth group representing the youth of Guyana in the authority, and you said this is
No, I didn't say that. I said a youth group that claims to be.
Claims to be
Yeah.
representing youth in Ghana.
Uh-huh.
You're saying that this, from your information, is a part of the LEAD project?
As the what?
A part of the LEAD project?
Let me repeat what I said. I said as far as the PPP is concerned, this youth grouping is a creature of external interference through the LEAD project.
Through the LEAD project?
Yes.
The LEAD project is an initiative of the United States. So why would you think the U.S. wants to interfere with the election process in Ghana? And,
I am not aware that the I am not aware that the LEAD project is an initiative of the United States. The LEAD project is supposed to be a project executed between the government of Guyana and the government of the United States. Do you recall the debates that took place on this matter?
yes, sir, because
Good.
you're saying it's interfering. You can't obviously be speaking about Guyana part, because Guyana can't interfere in Guyana. So you have to be speaking about it from the U.S. perspective.
Well, all that I'm saying is that Guyana had no say in this, in the promotion of this organization.
But why would you say that the U.S. wants to interfere? Do you think that the United States wants to be out?
I'm sticking to what I said in the statement. I'm free to say what I want to say.
And in saying what you want to say, would you say that the United States wants to be out of office?
I would leave that to you to draw your own conclusions.
Okay, and sir, what made you come to the conclusion that this body is a creature of the LEAD project?
That comes from our own analysis. That maybe came to the conclusion of our own analysis.
Mr. O'Reilly, do you have a problem with the objective of the initiative?
We don't know what is the objective of the initiative. We haven't seen anything official. All is that we've seen is what is in the newspapers, and what we've seen in the newspapers is what we're taking offense to.
Which is bringing more youths out to vote?
I'm not so sure that's the objective, because we are working to bring youths out to vote. But what we are concerned about is the fact that that GCOM has entered into a formal relationship with this body. That is our objective. That GCOM, officials at GCOM, has entered into a formal relationship with this body.
What do you mean, if you don't mind, when you said, I think you said that this was an attempt to hijack the Ghana National Youth Council, which I'm supposing the Ministry of Culture's arrangement for that youth council.
Because I said that this body has no local standard in the country, so in the first place, why are they being foisted on the youths of the country? There are other legitimate youth organizations in this country, so why pick on this particular one? And then more than that, not only because we're concerned, not only because it's being singled out for some preference in respect to elections, but also because we know of its association with the LEAD project at number 2. And if you inquire from GCOM of its relationship with the LEAD project, I'm sure you'll be able to find out much more how GCOM views the LEAD project in respect of its relationship with them. And then finally, the question of the formalized relationship between GCOM and this body is a matter of concern to us.
Mr. Louis Dennis Ronald, sir, are you at all concerned that getting out more votes, more youth votes, can be to the disadvantage of the PPP?
If we're concerned, why would we be concerned about that when we have our youth organization walking throughout the length and breadth of Guyana to bring out more and more young people to vote?
No, apart from your constituency that
We are not only working in our constituency. We are not only working in our constituency, we are working all across the country.
So then do you believe that the project that is coming under the aegis of GCOM will possibly target youths who are not part of your constituency, thereby giving them an electoral advantage?
Well, that is what we would like to have clarity on. That's what we would like to have clarity on. Because we don't see how GCOM could enter into this kind of formalistic relations with a youth organization led by the LEAD project.
Sir, you talk about drug barons aligned with the opposition parties. Obviously, as Home Affairs Minister, you would have had a lot of information there, sir. Were there any attempts to arrest or to attempt to prosecute these drug barons? And even the opposition parties who sought to align themselves with this, there were individuals who you tried to arrest and prosecute any of them?
Well, I have no powers of arrest, nor
Or
ability.
sanction the arrest, though?
No, I have no authority to sanction even arrest. You know, that has to follow a matter of due process, where the criminal justice system must act in concert with the, the laws of Guyana.
Has the party ever made a formal complaint to the police about the criminal problem, that criminal problem?
Well, we have made public statements. I'm sure the police would have taken note of what the PPP would have said in its press statements, and I'm sure that the police knows what to do operationally when it comes to such matters.
So why not make an official complaint? What is only the party that would that?
I'm not so sure whether a complaint was made or not, but we make it in public. We make our views known in public.
Would you like to make a complaint to the police?
A statement.
We have made a statement.
No, to the police.
We have made a statement.
So do you have any grounds to make your statement to the police?
We have grounds, yes.
To the
We have
police?
grounds. We certainly have grounds. Do you think the General Secretary of the PPP would sit at a press conference and make a statement like this, in total abandonment of, responsibilities
So why
and
not
so
go to
forth?
the police?
Sir, we know they say now is the silly season. Are you
Why don't you ask the Commissioner of Police if complaints were made? Don't ask me. I think it's better to go there and ask the Commissioner if anything was lodged with him.
But in this silly season, sir, are you
No,
bluffing?
forget the silly season.
Well, are you bluffing?
Forget the,
All right, let's move on from the, no, let's move on. Next question.
Answer the question.
All right.
Minister, you
I thought I answered that question already. I said I'm not going to sit here and bluff anybody. If anybody wants, can call my bluff.
All right. Sir, quickly, the President's pension bill.
Uh-huh.
You said that there's an attack and former presidents all received a similar package.
Oh, yes.
How accurate?
Full-blown attack. You just have to read the Kaicho News.
I know, but how accurate is it that former presidents received a similar package?
Very accurate. Very accurate.
President Jagdeo receives
No.
7, 8.
I'm saying to you, I'm not getting into the figures now. We'll release them later on. But we're very accurate in what we say. When we release the data, then you can question them. But I don't think we can discuss data at this point in time.
Very well, sir. So why modify the package if these presidents were already getting the same thing? Why?
I am not aware of any modification that you're referring to. All that I'm saying is that we will publish the data and people will be free to comment on it in terms of the comparative analysis.
When is this likely? When will you publish, sir?
We publish it. We will publish it. We will publish it. We will publish it.
Sir, could you say how soon?
We will publish it.
You know, some members of the party were critical of the president's benefit bill. They were very critical because
Yeah.
they said it was exorbitant and it was putting pressure on the poor people and the treasury and all of that. Members of your party, sir. And
Members of our party, who?
I will publish the names.
Go, you publish the names. You publish the names. You think we're not afraid of that? You publish the names.
And, yeah, but
Publish, have published back.
I hear you, sir. I mean, Mr. President. But, when people looked at the benefits, the uncapped treatment, medical treatment, the uncapped benefits for cars, the
Everything was
unlimited number of staff that he could have working with him, which former president would have enjoyed those benefits?
I said to you just now, we will publish the data. We will publish the data.
Sir, you can't say it offhand?
Excuse me? You expect a responsible person like me to speak offhand?
Yes, all right. Mr. Lowe, you only had 2 minutes.
All right, let's get.
No.
All right.
Can I have
No.
with the follow-up, Mr.
Yes,
Mr. Roy, looking at the former president's benefits,
Mhm.
and what was espoused by your income leader, Dr. Jallow, with respect to a clean government and basically not be extravagant by office holders, do you believe that the PEP is kept to the Jacobite principles?
I think it has, because the operative word there is principle. The PPP was the first to put in Parliament legislation to address this matter. In the past, it was done really on an ad hoc basis, through issues going to the Cabinet and matters being responded to, or representational matters being responded to on the basis of Cabinet decisions. In this particular case, right now, we now have statutes that govern the benefits and allowances that are granted to former presidents. They never had it in the past. We have it now.
You never had it in the past, you have it now, but do you think that being someone who was close to Dr. Jallow, he would have agreed to having such an extravagant lifestyle by former presidents?
Well, those are your words, not mine. But what I'm saying is that once it would have been discussed internally at both the party level and the government level, and there were consultations on the matter, and a consensus arrived at on the matter, I'm sure he would have agreed, because he was an ardent believer in internal consultations. And once that process would have been followed, I don't see why he would not have agreed with it.
Do you believe that the benefits are extravagant?
We have to compare those benefits with others, and then we will make a determination in respect of extravagance. We cannot look at his benefits in isolation from the others and draw conclusions which will be, unscientific.
Mr. Ruhi, sir, last week some documents came out that were prepared by the Ministry of Health with regards to medical assistance sought by gynaes, including government officials. Sir, your name was notably absent from that list. Is that because you were in excellent health, or you don't seek financial assistance from the Ministry of Health for your medical needs?
Well, I never approached anyone for medical help. I never did. I look after all my own medical bills.
Are you concerned, sir, that there are some members of the party and the government who have been seeking rather hefty sums and got hefty sums for their medical bills, including the fixed teeth?
Or a refund for $1,000?
Well, I think I saw in today's newspapers a response issued by the Ministry of Health on the matter. I would go with what the Ministry of Health said in its press statement, if it was indeed a press release. So I will stand by that.
So $4,361 million spent. Well over $200 million would be for government officials. The party's heading into an election.
Mhm.
Surely you would have some concerns about how that comes across to a public that may not be getting the same help if they have health issues or health concerns.
I'm not so sure about that, I mean, when you look at the allocation in the budget to public health issues across the country, and the social infrastructure that has been developed under the PPPC administration, the structure of the budget would show that ever since the PPP got into office, the largest chunks of the budget would go to health, education, generally social services, and then security. So we can't measure it without looking at the total investment from the budgetary point of view in public health sector, education, etc. We have to take all of that into consideration.
No, sir, but when you see a minister of your government spending $2.1 million of taxpayers' money on dental work, and you have communities where students are going to school without shoes on their feet, do you think that could affect the party's progress and the elections that are coming.
Well, in respect to young children without shoes on their feet, that is something that we'll have to examine very carefully and try our best to see how we could provide those communities with the necessary assistance so that we wouldn't have that as a phenomena that will be raised from time to time by media representatives.
Mr. Roy, would you say that a minister's salary is enough to cover their medical bills?
That what?
That a minister's salary.
Who said that?
We're asking
You don't ask for no medical help, so it means that your salary reasonably can cover your medical bills. Would you expect the same from all ministers?
Well, it doesn't mean to say that, from time to time I don't, need to get some medication or whatever the case might be.
But you can afford it if that need arises.
Most times I could. Most times I
What do you
could.
expect the same of other ministers?
Most times I could. Well, that's a matter, for the individuals themselves.
Sir Paul, why do you choose not to take medical assistance?
Why?
What is the principle behind that?
That's my own personal decision.
Do you think others should follow your lead?
That's for them to decide.
Why, you made the decision so as to not have that burden on taxpayers?
No, listen to me. I make my own decision with respect to my own personal
You
well-being.
want to appear clean politically?
Mr. Roy, just to labor the point once more, sir, in your opening statement regarding the coalition's move to hire three vice presidents and saying that could be a strain on the treasury, certainly over $200 million for medical help for your ministers certainly is putting a strain. It's money that could be used on other things. If you can afford it, why not do it? Including $1,000 for
Well, listen,
medication.
don't try to put a wedge between myself and my colleagues. It seems as though, the story here is leading to attempt to put a wedge between myself and my colleagues and, trying to create some issues here. I don't think that is a justifiable way of dealing with this matter. So let us move on.
On the same three vice presidents, sir, when the PDP came into office in '92, President Jagan made a big thing about reducing the size of ministries.
Yes, that's
And he
correct.
said there-
No, of 3 ministries.
Huh?
Yes, of some ministries.
Yes.
Mm.
So there would have been fewer ministers.
Mm.
But after he died, we had more ministries than we've ever had in the history of this country. Was that deliberate that we would expand the bureaucracy? One. And two, when we look at the amount of money we pay ministers today, wouldn't you agree that if the ministries are further reduced, you can have the three vice president pay them without putting a board member?
Every president comes to the presidency with his own vision, right? And like in the case of Mrs. Jagan, she felt that 2 ministries were important in her own vision of how Guyana ought to develop. One was the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, and there was another, which maybe was not a ministry, but it was another agency. I think under President Jagan, the first Ministry of Marine Affairs was established. So even Dr. Jagan saw the need for the establishment of a Ministry of Marine Affairs, which was something new. I don't think since the establishment of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, any new ministries were established. Yeah, subsequently you had the Ministry of Foreign Trade and International Cooperation. That lasted for 5 years, and then it collapsed back into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And now you have the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources. So, pardon? I know, but those are ministries in ministries. They weren't, in other words, they were using basically the same services, the same staff, and so on. All that happened was that internally, there was some internal separation of portfolio responsibilities. But when you looked at the budget, how the budget was structured, in the estimates, it was all under the ministry, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture and so on. So it all has to do with how these heads of state, when they assume office, how they would visualize and where they would like to see emphasis placed in terms of the development of the country. But I would think that as we accumulate more and more experience, and as the president move around, or the presidential candidates move around the country, I don't know, for example, what might be going through Mr. Granger's head, were he to become the next president of the country, how he would configure or reconfigure the ministries. But that is usually left to the, we will see that in the manifestos, what is the thinking of the parties, and we will also see that in any new government that comes into being. So I would think that that's an issue that is neither here nor there, but I think that whatever is done with the best interests of the country at heart. Expenses would obviously have to be always looked at very carefully to ensure that what is critical there also is that we get performance and output. Performance and output, I think, is what really matters.
And the fact, sir, that your colleagues became super rich on becoming ministers suggests that they were really paid handsomely. I want to say they stretched their hand and say.
Which colleagues are you referring to that became super rich?
I can start telling you right now, Robert Passat.
You have income tax returns to show that?
Well, I got some information on what was his salary at one time.
No. But I think you have to bring income tax returns.
All right. Chief, is he rich?
I'm not in a position to say. I can't say that.
Is President Jack Dio rich?
Similarly, I can't say that either. I think it would be best to ask those individuals the question. But when you say rich in relation, is that a relative issue?
Yeah, rich in relation to the rest of the society.
Is Glenn Lal rich?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Is Anil Mandela rich?
I have no idea.
He
Maybe.
himself said he was rich until he became a minister.
Okay.
And he tapped into that same bill that my colleague mostly talked about for $4-point-something million.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have paid his expense. But I mean, won't you suggest that your colleagues are paid handsomely so that they can become rich?
I don't know about paid handsomely because I receive the same salary like most of them.
Which is in excess of $1 million a month.
Who, me?
Yeah,
I don't know, but I receive $1 million. I receive $1 million a month.
yeah, the rest you put in the bank.
No, sir. No, sir. It's there in the parliament for everybody to see what a minister's salary is. There's no secret.
He has the share of 800,000.
There's a share, not a minister.
No, that's what I'm saying. If she's not a minister, she gets 800,000 plus. You can imagine.
Yeah, well, true, you can really imagine.
Minister Rohi, once again for the second election running, we're seeing one of your candidates, Bishop Juan Edgel, declaring that if Jesus would vote, he would vote PPP. And many members of the Christian community have been objecting
When he said
to
that?
his statement yesterday on one of the talk shows on radio. And he repeated, he said this before on the platform, I think it was
He's not really Bishop.
Sir, but is the party concerned in a country that has close to 60% of the population being members of the Christian community, that one of your candidates would make a statement that many of them would find offensive in a country like this?
Would they find it offensive?
Many of them have said that since the last time. Have
No,
objected
this
to it.
time.
With the minister yesterday, and based on
based on
you've seen
yesterday.
based on comments you have seen to the stories out there
Seen where?
online and in the newspapers, websites, and so they're
Oh.
objecting again. But
Well,
again,
I'm-
would this be something the party would encourage, using religion and the beliefs of a section of your society?
I have not seen what you're referring to as yet. I'm not that geekish in respect to social media, but I will need to look at it to see the context in which that comment was made, because everything as they said, must have been said. It must have been said in a particular context.
Do you believe Jesus would vote PPP?
First, I'd like to see a selfie of him.
I love that.
How is a year now?
But do you believe that, sir?
You heard what I said?
He has
See,
his
but selfieing on the
He and
direction.
the man exists, as we say.
You have to see him first.
Yes, any other question? If not, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen.
And thanks for having us a quiet press conference.
Yeah,